Hello, I'm Derek Terry, host of I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying. Here at one of my favorite spots, the barbershop, where we know if you're gonna complain here, then you better provide solutions.
Good.
It's good. I firmly believe when we make other people's problems part of our conversations without providing solutions or prayer, then we become part of the problem. I want to be able to provide people with a platform where they can freely express their views on such topics as education, social issues, health and fitness. Now that's good. Or sports. So please join me so we can complain and provide solutions together.
Hey, greetings, people. This is your man, Derek Terry, host of I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying. Wherever you're going to complain, let's bring some solutions to the table. Welcome to another edition of I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying. This is my voters education series, and my special guest today is Jamila Smith, who is running for Charles County Board of Education District 2. Before I bring her in, I just pretty much want to give everybody notice that all the candidates that come on here, no one pays a fee. I'm only interviewing Charles County Commissioner candidates and Charles County Board of Education candidates. Not everyone has agreed, so I'll just leave it at that. But I'm giving the candidates an opportunity to present their platform, defend their platform, and always remember that I will not 100% agree with anyone that's on here, but I will be respectful and will always agree to disagree. So I encourage everyone to educate themselves on the candidates, and I wish all of them good luck. So with that, I'm going to bring in Miss Jamila Smith. And as she's coming in, we're technology, so it's coming in. And Jamila Smith, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, good day. Good to be with you.
Hey, it's another day is what I always say. And for those that, didn't see my shirt, I don't know if it's backwards. Now I'm an alpha man, but, we always encourage votes. Vote,
Absolutely.
vote.
Civic engagement.
Yep. And my views are my views, not the views of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated or any other organization. Just my views. But with that, hey, how you been?
I've been all right. I've been doing all right, doing okay. I wish outside would figure out, what it'd like to be. Are we in spring? Are we at the tail end of winter? But other than that, doing well.
Okay. But before we get into the interview, we definitely got a lot to unpack in terms of your platform. So before we get started, tell us about Jamila Smith, just the person.
Absolutely. So, well, one, thank you for inviting me. Always enjoy sort of reaching, the community in a variety of mediums. So appreciated the invitation to join this wonderful podcast. As Derek shared, I'm Jamila Smith. I am a mother of three, a wife to Everett Smith. We moved to the county about 11 years ago. It's surprising that it's been that long, but time flies when you're having a great time. We expressly moved here for the education system. I have three kids that are very close in age, so we knew that private education was not something that we were interested in. We wanted to ensure that our kids had a public school education, a high quality public school education. So we explicitly looked at a number of different counties and decided that Charles County was offering what we were hoping to provide for our children. I think that the county has a number of wonderful resources that we need to ensure that we're continuing to provide to our young people in support of giving them a high quality education and ensuring that they are prepared for the world within the county and beyond. I love a number of things. I love to, ride with my family, which is why I was commenting on the weather. We'd love to get out once the sun is a little brighter. Trying to get into being a marathoner. I just did the rock and roll.
I saw that. I thought that was a flash. I thought that was a flashback. I was like, wait a minute.
No, I did it again. I got out there and did it again. I am not crazy. It feels good. It's a little achy, but it feels good. So hopefully I'll continue on that path. But that's a bit about me. I've been in education for a number of years, worked with a number of stakeholders throughout the education system, have been a very familiar face in a lot of school buildings. When my children were at Diggs Elementary, any field trip I can sign up for, I was there. I served on the PTO for a number of years. I also served as the school liaison for the Communications Commission, as well as for the Parent Engagement Commission when they had it back in the day. Would love to bring that back. Currently, I serve as the PTO secretary for Davis, now that I have a child at middle school. I also serve as a board member for the Early Childhood Advisory Council here in the county, as well as a number of other boards. But that sort of makes up me. I'm a servant leader. I always want to find a way of using what I have to give back to those who may have less, but are also looking to do the same with what I'm doing with my children, ensuring they have a high quality education.
Okay, yeah, and we definitely appreciate that, out of you and all the candidates. One thing she failed to mention is that her and I met in the class of 2020 in the Citizens Police Academy. So she's very familiar with me. She knows I'm very outspoken. I speak my mind, and I enjoy it. And then really, that's where we became friends. But we didn't always agree on everything, but you're not supposed to.
Right.
And so with that, what I wanted to do, let me see if I can share my screen. There we go. So I just wanted to let y'all know, this is Jamila. Yeah, I did this. But, that's where her website is at. And what we're going to do is, before we start, we're talking about District 2. And for those that are unfamiliar where District 2 is at, if you look right here, District 2 is green, but this color green. So if you see my arrow, this is green, and you may say, man, that's a lot of area compared to District 3. Well, and I believe you was on the redistricting board.
Yes, I was.
And a lot of this is based on population, not necessarily area. So when you look at it, where I live at District 3, you can see that the square mileage is significantly lower compared to District 2. But I guess when they do all that, it's somewhat equivalent to what the population is. So what I wanted people to realize is, in this particular election, if you live in this area, I think St. Charles High School part of District 2, I believe.
I don't believe it is, no.
Okay.
The lines cut a little strange. For instance, Davis and Diggs are a part of District 2, but North Point is a part of District 3.
Okay.
So the line sort of cuts right through those schools.
Yeah. So they got some funky lines. So I would encourage you just to make sure that you know what district you live in. Let me get out of this real quick. I'll stop sharing. Okay. So now can you see your website? Or just still on the same screen?
No, I'm still looking at the slide deck lineup, the Top Golf fundraiser.
All right, hold on for a second. You stop sharing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up your platform for the viewers, because it's what I encourage all the candidates to do is have something so we can look at, and I get really all the questions from your platform.
Mm-hmm.
So let me bring it up. And, this is your mission as far as effective problem solving. Let's start with the mission first.
Sure.
What do you mean by effective problem solving?
So for me, problem solving ensures a variety of stakeholders are coming to the table. Now, of course, there could be a small group who believes they're solving issues, but if you're not bringing a multitude of voices to the table, and let me be clear about what I mean by multitude. I'm talking about the teachers, I'm talking about parents, I'm talking about the business advocacy community, by bringing a variety of, even students. I know we'll have a student representative on the council who'll be speaking on behalf of students, but bringing a number of students to the table to help sort of make decisions more clearly in a way that best supports all students and all teachers.
Okay. And when we talk about transparency, and I'm speaking as a former educator, are you talking about transparency between the board and the superintendent? Because I know for years, like for instance, there was a case with, I think it's I forgot what it was, but whatever it was, the board was unaware of it.
Mm.
So are you talking about that type of transparency and decision-making when we're talking about communication?
So I think it would also include, so it would include the board, will include the superintendent Navarro, ensuring there are clear communications with her and her team, her leadership team. But also it's not just with the superintendent, it's also outward communications to the community. I know that, the board has been stepping up their communications via social media and just ensuring that we all know sort of when meetings take place. But in terms of what's on the docket, we all know how to sign up to kind of be a speaker at any particular board meeting, but what topics are being discussed? Is that clear? Is that understood? Do parents understand sort of what they may be advocating for or against if they were invited to speak? It's also clear lines of communications with the commissioners, knowing that they approve our budget. So while the budget is proposed from the superintendent to the board, when the board then goes to request the funding, that goes through the commissioners. The commissioners have to say yay or nay whether or not we have the money and the funding. So ensuring that there is a clear line of communication and engagement with them as well, so they're familiar with all of the programs that are being supported and the value of these programs or not. So that when the budgets do come up, that there is a clear line of communication, there's been some engagement. We have a stakeholder, a group of individuals who are bought into the vision that's been set for the school board. But in terms of engaging with parents, I want to go back to them for a second. It's really important that they understand, again, look, the decisions that are being made, what's coming up, and it's not just during budget time. It's not just at that moment when Superintendent Navarro is asking for additional funds or they're looking to move around monies, but really understanding materials that are being purchased, what's happening with the transportation issues, how are those contract negotiations being unfolding, but just ensuring that parents have enough to decide, how and where their children should be educated. Are there specific programs at the high school levels that their kids should go into as opposed to just attending their zone school? So again, just wanting to ensure that parents and guardians have enough information to be partners in education. We say that they're partners, but if we don't provide them with the necessary information and where to find it, are they truly partners?
Well,
Go ahead, Derek.
well, I know, and I guess that's where, and to some degree, we may have a disagreement. The only reason I say that, because the information is accessible. What I find, especially as a former educator, is that parents are just not taking the initiative to find these things out. When you go to board meetings, a lot of times they're empty unless there's an issue. It's something they want to get across, like when the mask mandates, all these people that I never heard or said anything when it comes to, I say, issues of people who look like me. I don't ever see them at the meetings talking about these things unless it's something that's on their agenda. And when we talk about, you mentioned the budget. When we look at the budget, I'm what you call a fiscal conservative. I don't believe in throwing money at a problem, but you haven't tried to fix the problem, without the money. Meaning that, okay, what is the underlying issue? Like when you look at teacher shortages, I could say it's money, but there's more than just that. Everything is always talking about money, 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 money. And when you talk about teachers, and I think some of this touches on your platform, recruitment and retention of educators.
Absolutely.
Let's take money out of the equation. As a board member, what are some other issues that you feel may be affecting why teachers are not coming or staying, particularly teachers of color and male, particularly, like I left?
So there are a few things. I know that most sort of large organizations, when they do have staff that off board, there is some type of exit survey that's given just to get a sense of why they're leaving either the profession or why they're leaving that particular employer. If there is such information coming out of the public school system, I'd love to see it. Just to get a sense of, for those teachers who are choosing to leave either the system or education in totality, getting a sense of why they're leaving. And also getting a sense of, is it teachers of color? Are there just a few teachers of color who are leaving? Or is it a more exponential number than sort of non-teachers of color or white teachers? I'd love to get that. I mean, right now, I think we have anecdotal information, but we don't necessarily have concrete sort of facts and data before us to even truly have this conversation. But we do know sort of nationally there is a teacher shortage. I know the pandemic has been a huge stressor on teachers. There was this huge pivot from in-person education, from which our education system has been since the inception of it, to immediately transferring to a virtual platform. So I know that was definitely a stress. and then having, students return in person, and then, trying to weather those challenges. But then you also have students who are, testing positive for COVID, who have to be out for a number of days. And then they come back and is trying to discern, okay, well, how do I keep the current class on track while also bringing these students along as well? Things that we know teachers deal with every day, but I think it's been just exasperated by the pandemic. And I'd love to say the pandemic is the main cause for them leaving the profession, but until we're able to truly get down to the exit data to figure out why, for instance, I know that the teachers that I sort of, have conversations with, they've mentioned planning time. They are supposed to have dedicated planning time by which to plan for classes, exactly what it is. But then it becomes, covering another class. It becomes, well, I have to make copies. It becomes, I have to return phone calls to parents. So really trying to figure out, is there a way for us to truly protect planning time, to your point, that doesn't require us to, I think, as you said, throw additional money at it, but to figure some of those things out.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think there is. And the reason I say that is I know historically teachers give at least 10 hours of free labor for free. Free, whether it's after school, on the weekends. I don't know any other quote unquote contract employee that would work 10 hours with no form of compensation, whether it's monetary, leave, or whatever. The other thing to look at is, like you talked about the exit interviews. When I worked in Charles County in 2010, and then I left. And when I left, they didn't do an exit interview. I literally had to ask them, are you concerned of why I'm leaving? And basically I said, this is the reason why you have issues, because you don't even know why I'm leaving. So I think the former superintendent, and I'd posed this to her, how do you know it's pay if you have no data to reflect it? You're just assuming it's pay. Did you know why I left? And I don't think she was superintendent at the time. I can't really remember. But I said, do you know why I left? And I explained to her why I left. It had nothing to do with pay. And now I'm glad that they're actually doing this. I think with the new HR director coming in, Miss Majors, they may have started it when she came, or they may have started it sometime before that. And I think those are valuable. So now what I want to do, I'm going to go to another part of, what do you stand for? She stands for a lot. So what we're going to talk about.
I thought it was important to have a well laid out website. I know that folks don't necessarily have a lot of time. So on their own free time, they can kind of peruse through and get a sense of, what I'm most invested in.
Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed this because it gave me something to look at. We're not going to touch on all of it, but when we talk about prepare all students for college and careers, I definitely agree with that. Having a daughter who just graduated from college this past winter. Yep.
Congratulations.
I give Morgan State their props, and she majored in construction management and minored in business, and she starts her new job, I think, in about a week. But one thing that I guess troubled us as parents is that there were certain things in place that she didn't get going into Morgan State. And one of the things that I would say, you have right here, the ninth grades, ensuring they're on track with the data, the blueprint, the blueprint wasn't in existence. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer in AVID. And I mean AVID in a sense that whether it's a trade or college, that every student should be preparing for that. It's starting in ninth grade or sooner.
Absolutely.
You have right here, here's this, expand access to meaningful, relevant college careers. Can you kind of touch on what you're seeing and what you would like to see and how you would implement it?
Sure. So, let me backtrack a little bit. Several weeks ago, my daughter's high school held a college fair or a college day where they had college students, current and past college students, come in and talk about their experience. And the idea was to at least get middle schoolers thinking about, what would they like to do beyond high school? And if the idea is, if they're interested in college, trying to figure out what's the path or the foundation I have to set in order to get there. The very first question I asked, I don't want to go in sort of preachy, because we all know, kids kind of turn off when that happens. I wanted to go in with, who likes to eat? Who likes the vacation? Who eventually wants to own a car? Who eventually sees themselves moving out of their parents' house? All hands, everyone in the class. So my stance was automatically everyone here either wants to go to college or has to prepare for a career after high school, meaning you'll need some additional certifications beyond high school. It cannot just be your high school diploma, or if you need to, your GED. There have to be some certifications that also come with the career that you're looking to go into, and then kind of going into it that way. I took the path of college. I believe that, for the majority of our kids, we should be thinking about like, what is that post-high school experience? So when we talk about the career field, we have a very active, engaged, and well-populated sort of business community right here with our Charles County Chamber of Commerce. There are jobs right here in the county, and thinking about like, what are the jobs, what would those jobs look like 3 to 4 years from now? And what are the qualifications that we would need students to have in order to qualify for those jobs, whether it includes a college degree or whether or not they would accept kids right out of high school. So thinking about like, what are those mentorship opportunities? What are those opportunities where we can pair with our business community to show students, to show kids, this is what it looks like when you're in the workplace or when you're on the job? What are those internships? I truly believe that at some point in time, we in the county should have an internship program for all of our high school students. There should be some type of summer job internship program for them while we have them here. If the goal is to send them off into the world with the hopes that they will return to the county and continue to enrich it, then we have to show them what's viable right here in preparation for either that college degree or those beyond high school certifications.
Okay, so let's look now at your increased literacy proficiency. And we know that one of, how can I put it? One of the, I guess, issues with some of our kids when they graduate is their ability to comprehend, not necessarily read.
Read, yes.
But comprehend what they're reading. And also having material that they can relate to not only engage, but motivate them to read. So I saw an interesting bullet in here, and I kind of let you know where I'm leading to once you address it.
Mm-hmm.
But it said, you work with educators, select, invest in reading curricula that are evidence-based and culturally responsive.
Absolutely.
Can you expand on that and how you would try to implement that?
So, well, let me start by saying that the readings that my children have come home with, and I'm fortunate in that I'm able to, engage with my children when they're doing their homework. I'm able to go over readings with them. They have been fairly diverse, and I've been very proud and pleased that, again, we selected a school system that is so extensive in sort of the readings that they provide to students. When we're talking about a world-class education, it has to reflect the world in which we live in, right? And I think that supports all students. It supports all students' growth. To learn about the Civil War and, some of the tumultuous times there and what the battlefield looked like, to learn about, Native Americans. I mean, we are very rich in the county to actually have, tribes that are here and that are vibrant and that are growing, to learn more about the county's history and the experience of those tribes and what the county looked like, several hundred years ago. I mean, that's rich. We have, Port Tobacco, we have Nanjamoy, the Nanjamoy Environmental Center. There are a variety of things that we have right here in the county that could increase students' comprehension and learning through, again, responsive text and things of that such. So.
Okay. So, I'm going to keep it real.
Please.
Now, we know you're in District 2, and the demographics in District 2 are somewhat different than the demographics in District 3. So let's say I'm a District 2 voter and I'm like, you know what? It sounds like you're promoting CRT or critical race theory. And what I want to tell people is that unless your child is in law school and they chose to take the course, there is no critical race theory, quote unquote, being taught in any public schools. So I'll say it again. Unless your child, who is now an adult, is in law school, and they chose to take the course because it's not a requirement, it's an elective. It's never been taught in here. But what do you say to those? You may have those voters that say, you know what, culturally responsive, it's a code word for CRT. And that's why I brought it up, because I hear it from both sides. And I was like, well, the course has never been taught, so I don't understand what you're talking about. So, and you said things that you need to know the good and the bad in
Mhm.
regards to history, which kind of now puts me to your third bullet. It said provide educators with aligned, highly qualified professional development. What particular areas of professional development would you like to see educators get, not only to help themselves, but to help our students?
So I'll say that, I mean, like all of us, I love America, love our county. I think America is one of the younger countries. We're still growing and developing. I know people are like, well, we're hundreds of years old, but yes, in comparison to other countries, we are still fairly young. And I think we're continuing to grow and evolve. I believe that we should teach history the way history happened. But in order to do that, I think we need to ensure that our teachers are prepared. I mean, just like teacher professional development, you may have a teacher who has a math concentration coming out of college who wants to teach math. There are a variety of other trainings that teachers should still have in order to teach math in a multitude of ways so that they're reaching all learners. It's the same with language arts. It's the same with science. So I think in order to support our educators in teaching history the way in which it happened, we need to ensure that they have, the proper training to do so. I continue to use the term, world-class citizen. We are truly trying to prepare our kids for the world. I would hate for anyone to leave our county, any child to leave our county and go off to whether it's CSM, whether it's Bowie, whether it's Stanford, excuse me, or Georgetown, my alma mater, Hoyas, wherever, our children may go, they're representing our county. And if they go with a skewed or inaccurate history of the country in which we live, I mean, they're going to have a tough time. I mean, they can't sit amongst their peers and recount history in a way that did not happen, or they're missing large swaths of history because, we as adults didn't want to step into teaching history accurately. I think that's a missed opportunity. I think we would do our kids a disservice, and I'm here for children. So.
Okay, so the next one is recognize, support, and diversify Charles County Public Schools educator workforce. And like I told you earlier, I'm a fiscal conservative. So when I looked over this, I was like, woo, yeah, we're gonna have some disagreements on this one. But I wanted you, when I look at the first bullet, to pay the teachers, basically phase them in starting salary, $60,000 by 2024. How do you suggest we pay for this?
So one, this is actually in the blueprint.
Yeah.
So this is not Jamila's idea. I would love to say it is.
Yeah.
I think teachers should be paid more. Having been in education, knowing sort of what they're up against, I believe none of us would be anywhere without a teacher. None of us would be anywhere unless we learned how to read, write, comprehension, computational science, math, whatever it is that we learned from a teacher, we wouldn't be anywhere in our lives without having an educator. So I believe they should be paid like athletes get paid, but that's me. That's my personal platform. But in terms of 60K by 2024, that's not new. That's in the blueprint, and that's something that the board is already familiar with and has already presented to the county commissioners. So this actually predates me. I'm saying that I believe this is something that we should support. There's also stipulations that this is the floor. 60K is the floor. So if you're teaching in a Title I school, or you're working with, communities who are having familial income challenges or struggling schools, if you're working with diverse populations, I mean, there are degrees to it. So you would get increased pay depending upon your area of specialty or your area of teaching. So.
Okay, so
it's already laid out.
Yeah, so I haven't, and I'll be honest, I haven't read the blueprint in its entirety, but let's say, for instance, and it may be in the blueprint, starting salary for all teachers, $60,000. So let's say prior to that, the starting salary was $45,000. So that's a $15,000 increase. So if I'm currently making $60,000 and this starting salary goes in effect, in essence, I should now be getting $75,000 a year.
How would you be 75 if the floor is 60?
No, what I'm saying is if the starting salary is 60, I'm a teacher who's already making 60. I paid my dues. I'm making 60 right now. So now you're going to give someone starting 60, and prior to that, the starting salary was 45,000. That's a $15,000 increase. So the way I look at it, I should be making $75,000.
No, that's a great question. That's a great question.
And
And I
I
think
don't, I'm
these are
not
all
sure.
the things that I know that the public school system is trying to figure out now. They have a number of blueprint heads, and as they're, sort of working through figures and figuring things out, these are conversations that are happening at the school board meetings. And this is what I mean by ensuring that our community is engaged in attending the meetings and aware of what the discussions are. So while you're saying the information is out there, is what you sort of previously said, the information is available, parents need to take advantage of it. Absolutely, but we also know parents are busy. So if there's a way that we can say, hey, this is the agenda for the meeting. We'll be discussing how we're going to scaffold teachers into this new pay structure over the next 2 years and what it's going to mean for our county budget wise. We'll be presenting to both the community as well as to the county commissioners or whomever, being able to say that prior to a meeting, as opposed to the meeting is happening, come testify if you have issues to speak about. Those are two different sort of communication structures.
Yeah, I can say, but I just know if I was still teaching, I would be livid if I didn't get the $15,000 increase. After, because I've been in the system 10 years, so I had to work my way up to 60,000.
No, I can absolutely see that. I can absolutely see that.
And
so I think these are all the things that are being figured out. I mean, that would be like the first issue is, as we're kind of building in these new onboarding teachers, in addition to trying to scaffold those who are below this current pay structure, what are we going to do for those who are currently at the line in terms of getting them additional pay? Yes, there are 3 different structures to figure out there. And I would love to say I'm certain, but I know some of the conversations are happening. I'm not certain about that conversation, which you're speaking about. But either way, I'm sure that they're being discussed. And if not, then that's a great issue for anyone in our community to sort of bring to the board to inquire further.
Well, that's something I'm definitely going to look into, only because I personally don't think it's being addressed. And it's only because the funding really only focuses on minimum salaries. To how do you bring in new teachers? Your next one, you talk about loan forgiveness for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about the federal government providing those funds for loan forgiveness, or the system would somehow have millions of dollars? And when we talk about high need schools, we don't have a lot per se.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if we do have a lot, it's going to require federal assistance to have loan forgiveness, or we're going to have to come up with a pot of money of where the loan forgiveness will come from. And does loan forgiveness mean you stay in the system for 5 years? And when I say this, it's not necessarily a talking point. I definitely agree. It's just, where's the money going to come from?
No, absolutely. So wanting to address a few things that you pointed out there. In terms of loan forgiveness, the federal government already has a program that any teacher in our country could apply for if they meet certain criteria to have their loans forgiven. That's fairly new. It's under this administration. And any teacher can reach out and sort of do that. I'd be happy to provide the link to you to share with your viewership. Secondly, in terms of, we don't have many schools in the county that are of high need. We do have a considerable number of students who are on what's called free and reduced lunch. And depending upon the population of the school can be designated as a Title I school. Which would be sort of a school that would need some additional resources. But in terms of how to get these additional funds into the county, let me first talk about loan forgiveness. So we're talking about the base salary starting at 60, and there being sort of increments of increase depending upon specialties that the teacher may have. But we also need to we also have to realize that starting salary at 60K is not just Charles County. That's Prince George's, that's Calvert, that's St. Mary's, that's Dorchester, that's every county in Maryland. So if we're talking about trying to recruit and retain, then we have to be competitive. And so, yes, we can talk about the wonderful sort of quality of life here in Charles County, which I'm wholeheartedly invested in, one of the reasons I also moved here. But we also have to figure out ways to attract them. So if we tell a teacher, look, the starting salary is 60K, we can't do PG's numbers of whatever PG may increase their salary above, because they have a higher tax base, they have more people. But we are able to offer loan forgiveness. We are able to perhaps, give you, work in the area to perhaps try to think of something, additional credits for a home or something like on your loan, to be able to sort of get you to come and teach in the county.
So you're talking about some of the incentives. What are some of the incentives that would attract? And these are, and I agree, these are things that I've seen in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, but a lot of that money was from federal government. So the federal government, because of shortages like special ed, I got an incentive. to be a sped teacher, but that wasn't money that the city had. As money that the federal government gave
In terms
to help support the shortage.
So Derek, just to jump in for a second. So the loan forgiveness program that I spoke about from the federal government is for any teacher in the nation. So that does not have to go through a state. It does not have to go through a district. That's for anyone who wants to apply. Now, in terms of programs that come from the federal government to the state, and then from the state to the district, there are sort of three tiers there. The state can have its own loan forgiveness program for teachers in Maryland. I haven't researched to figure out if we do, but that's something to look into. But what I'm talking about is something within Charles County. If they want to tap into like the district itself, if they want to tap in or tack on to whatever the federal government's doing or whatever the Maryland State Department of Education is doing, that could definitely be an avenue. But finding ways for us to be viable in the midst of other counties who may be offering other incentives, so that again we can attract, and not only attract them but retain them. Because to your point, if we do forgive their loans for whatever period it may be, perhaps it ends up being like a 5 or a 10-year contract. Perhaps it adds additional duties onto that contract because we have invested in them sort of being here. Also thinking about for those teachers who want to get higher degrees. If we're talking about ensuring our students have a world-class education, why wouldn't we do the same for our professionals? Supporting them in getting master's degrees, additional certifications in their area of study to ensure our kids have the best educators, or PhDs, if that's the route that they want to take. And it doesn't have to be for everyone. There's an application process that could be put in place. But again, it's ensuring that we're viable in the midst of other districts within the state that could be offering additional incentives.
Yeah, and I can see your point, but me being a fiscal conservative, that's going to require more money year after year after year. And I think, for me as a taxpayer, I want to see the fruits of my labor, the fruits of the labor. I just don't want to keep giving money and I don't see anything on the return. And then what do you say to those people? I don't have any kids in the system and I'm still paying this. And for me, it just seems that the school system always gets an increase, always. And they always get an increase. They never get a decrease. Even when the student population is lower, they still got an increase. So, that's something that, we can discuss further another day, because we got about 15 minutes and I kind of wanted to get through one more thing from this particular, the Recognize, Support, Diversity. Improve diversity of the county's education force, starting with enhanced recruitment teachers of color. Now, I do know that they have extensive recruiting efforts throughout the state and other areas. What I'm finding out is that, one, we don't have a lot of students of color that want to be in the field of education. And then the other thing is, let's say I go to Howard. Why would I come to Charles County for a teaching gig if I can go to DC and whatever and get more money? So the thing is, when you talk about the enhanced recruitment of teachers based on subject areas, and we know the subject areas of math, pretty much STEM and special ed. What is something that you would like to see to really drive this recruitment effort of teachers of color? And what I will say, and also working with the commissioners, because of the affordable housing issue. Because that's the other thing as well. Can I actually afford to live here?
So, two-part question. Great question. I'll take the first one. I have spent my career being an engager, being someone who brings multiple people to a conversation to solve a particular challenge. And I would be looking to bring that same sort of energy and focus and commitment to the board. So I would like to know more about what are our relationships with many of these sort of pipeline programs to bring diverse teachers into Charles County. And it's not just looking at HBCUs, and it's not just looking locally at HBCUs. I would say it's HBCUs. I would say it's Hispanic serving institutions. We have a number of them throughout the country. I would also say that it's tribal colleges and universities, which we also have a number of throughout the country. I would say that it's not just looking at those who are looking at the teaching profession as going into college, that's the area of study they'd like to go into, but it's also looking at mathematicians. It's looking at, those who've gone into industry, those who've gone into, you mentioned STEM, engineering, technology, math, science, and figuring out, is there a way for them to come into the classroom? I think sometimes people don't realize that they have a true gift to teach and relay information unless you sort of bring them along the path and show them that this can be an area for them to flourish in. I think it's figuring out, like, working with our high schools. Is there a pipeline? If we pay for a portion of your schooling, would you work with us during the summer to eventually become a teacher once your program has concluded? Yeah, I think there's a variety of ways that we can think about it, but I'd love to, one, brainstorm and talk more about what have we already done? Has it worked? Has it not? What have we not considered? As I mentioned, Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges and universities. I don't believe we've ever tapped those. But that's anecdotal. I don't know that to be true because, again, I haven't been privy to that information. But from what I know, which again is not factual, I haven't, again, been engaged in the conversation, I do not believe that we've engaged them in the way in which I would like to engage them. But I think it's also looking at, and I'd love to say that, I believe Dr. Navarro is doing some of this, but I think it's also looking at other counties, other states, where have they been successful? Because as we mentioned, teacher shortages across the country, but there have been a number of states and localities that have been successful in recruiting diverse teachers.
Yeah, and I think that's key. And you mentioned looking at other counties, and myself, I've worked in Fairfax, Alexandria, Prince William, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, PG, and Charles County. So I see some good practices there that can definitely benefit Charles County. But really, it's and this is kind of like when I look at the board and the communicating with the superintendent is, okay, what good can we take out of what these other counties are doing and try to bring it here?
Absolutely.
And sometimes you have pushback. You have pushback over change because obviously whatever they're doing isn't working. So if your stuff isn't working, why are you reluctant to change? So what we're gonna do, I want to trying to see which one of these I want to talk about. All of them are interesting. We're going to skip over the pandemic because we kind of touched on that earlier. Early childhood, we pretty much know that that is critical to the development of our students. And climate change, this is something, to be honest with you, I've never really seen on a Board of Education candidates platform. So I kind of want to touch on this. You said establish a plan to 100% clean energy use. And this is interesting because I recall sometime when I was running, looking at different, like the Air Force Academy, they have solar panels. And I'm thinking, okay, why can't we get solar panels? Community colleges, Baltimore County, all Dundalk, Essex, and Catonsville, all of them have solar panels.
Right.
But we don't. And I have a theory why, but I won't get into that theory. But explain to the viewers why you think this is important.
So as I've shared before, I'm a very engaged Charles Carolinian, Countian.
Chuck County.
Charles Countian, yes, I could never get that out. Very engaged Charles Countian. So after the Citizens Police Academy that we both served on, Derek, I then went into the Citizens Academy, which is also run by the county, a fabulous program that provided me with a variety of perspectives across our government and all of the different sort of components of government, the different organizations, how they run, how they function. And one of them focused on climate change and the county's major stance. I think we've actually received an award or two for our stance on climate change. And then it got me thinking, there must be an educational component to this. Again, I've mentioned before that there are so many resources here in the county. I'm so proud to live here. Being from an area that didn't have access to the waterways, that didn't have access to something like the Nanjemoy Environmental Center. There is so much here that our students can learn from. And I think that we can do better. We've seen climate change happening firsthand because we do have access to the waterways, because we are so close to the water. So wanting to ensure that we're doing our part in climate change. You mentioned solar panels. There's a variety of things that we can do in our schools just to make them more energy efficient. From low flushing toilets to the school buses, only working with contractors that are transitioning from diesel to electric, thinking about how we are minimizing the pollutants that go into our waterways from our school systems. My children were very fortunate in Diggs through a teacher, Mrs. Pryor. She's amazing. She was their kindergarten teacher, but she ran a program called Growing Green after school. And my kids were able to be a part of it. It's like this horticulture club where they had a garden. They learned about, the life cycle of a plant. They drew, they colored, but it was engagement early on with, nature and things around them from a very, very early age. And they've carried that with them, through, almost to going into middle school. So, I'd love for all students in the county to have a similar experience. I'm very excited that the superintendent and the board have now opened up the Nanjamore Environmental Center for those upcoming 8th and 7th graders that missed it due to the pandemic. I did write the superintendent and just, really request, because my older daughter who's in middle school, she missed that opportunity. And having gone on the field trip with my twins, I have twins in elementary school, I saw firsthand how valuable of an experience it was. There's some real education going on out there. It's a full day. And so wanting to ensure that those upcoming 8th and 7th graders had a similar experience was important to me.
Because I do know when I look at your initiatives and the things that you would like to do with climate change, when they have these budget meetings, and I don't know if this is discussed, cutting the budget or finding ways to reduce the budget is not necessarily a bad thing. And I say that because we're looking at, like, if you know how much money we spend on energy, I'm almost certain it's somewhere, it's a lot. So now if we're trying to come up with ways, how can we reduce our energy costs? Now, maybe the Ccboes of the world may be upset, but I'm like this. We should be in the business of saving money for the taxpayer. And that's just my opinion. I see this as a good idea, but be prepared for pushback. And the reason I say it,
I'm always open to dialogue. I'm always open for conversation.
Yeah. But I definitely feel that when they look at the overall budget, what are some ways we can either cut costs or reduce costs in the best interest of not only our students, the environment, Charles County, and so forth. So I wanted to touch on this last one, because once again, this is one that I don't think I've seen, but I've been involved in it, and I've been a product of eating school lunch all the time. It didn't bother me. I've been eating school lunch. When we had those, those pizzas that look like
little square, the rectangle pizzas.
Well, I had the long ones. It was like the sort of like a cylinder or whatever. And whether or not it was cheese pepperoni, and then I'll go to breakfast because they had the best toast. And I went to Edgewood out in Harford County. But building existing efforts. So the farm to school programs, which is very important in Charles County, particularly when you're dealing with District 2 and more of a rural area.
Absolutely.
And I believe District 1 as well. What do you think is lacking when it comes to food education for our students and also with the parents?
So one, I know that there are USDA regulations that, guide what foods can be introduced into school. We obviously don't want our children to be sick or to have any issues or allergies. So there are USDA guidelines. I'm sure there are also state guidelines. But within those guidelines, I'm sure there is a way that we can work with our local farm communities to get fresh food into the school. Not to say what's currently going in is not fresh, but if it's literally coming from 6 miles up the road, 10 miles up the road, I'm sure it's fresher than whatever's being, driven in via truck from wherever within the state or wherever within, the US. So finding ways, and we have our farm families are hardworking individuals. If we're able to develop a relationship with them to buy their produce, I think it's a win-win for the community, a win-win for them as an independent business, a win-win for our farm community, a win-win for our school and our students in eating healthy and clean.
And then also goes back to what I said with, are there ways that we can reduce the budget or save costs?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how this would be more expensive, but they may not have the volume as well too. That I don't know. Can they produce the volume of produce and fresh goods that is needed for the entire system or certain school or whatever it may be? That I don't know.
That can be figured out. Even if it's just, we have fresh food that covers one meal a week. And we have a number of farms. It doesn't have to be just from one farm. We have a number of, farms throughout the county. So figuring out sort of what that would look like, what would be that negotiation? I mean, because they sell at farmers markets, they sell in a variety of other markets in and around the county, in and around the country. So is there a way, if they have direct business here in the county, perhaps it would be less expensive for them to have to leave the county to sell their goods when they can sell right here to their local school system?
Okay. Well, as we wrap up, I want to say that it's definitely been a pleasure. I didn't get a chance to go over everything, but I'm gonna let me put your information back up here again, and I'm gonna excuse me for a second. Don't worry.
And while you're doing that, I'm always happy to come back for a part 2. So I know we had planned to do this in person.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is when I put it up there, it came up HTTPS somewhere, I think on the Maryland candidate website, it may say HTTP, but that's how it came up. But either way, it'll come up. And what I want to say to the viewers is I didn't get a chance to go over everything. So that's why I encourage you to go to the website. You can look at it for yourself. And of course, you're not going to agree with everything, but focus on those things you agree with. Put all your energy there. Like, I ain't put all my energy in things I disagree with, but because you're not going to agree with everything. But, the fact that it's laid out there to discuss, that's really what you want, regardless of who the candidate is and what district. You want to be able to have this dialogue with, with that particular candidate. So before we close, Jamila.
Yes.
Any last words you want to say to people watching?
So I would just say I would love to have your vote. To Derek's point, we may not agree on everything, but I definitely think we can agree that our students here in the county deserve the best education that they can be provided. If you believe that there is a different platform or a different way of going about it than what I've laid out, would love to have a conversation with you. But either way, children is my passion, ensuring they have the best and what they need for all kids, not just our students who are in general education, but also our students who are in special education, also our students who are coming to learn the language, our dual language learners. So wanting to ensure that our county and all of its students have the very best in order to support them going well beyond high school is sort of the foundation of my platform. So I would love your vote. But again, I also would love to hear from you as we go make our trek to July.
Okay, so if they happen not to visit the website, they have an email address or a campaign phone number they can get in contact with you with?
Yes, my website has my email address.
Okay. So I definitely want to thank you. I wish you and all the other candidates the best of luck, and rest assured you'll be hearing from me again, like all the other candidates. And until then, I wish you peace and blessings, and till next time. And thank you. All right. So before we close, once again, I want to thank Jamila Smith for being on and discussing her platform. There's a lot to unpack with her platform. So I didn't get a chance to go over everything, didn't really want to get that long-winded and extend, but you definitely can visit her website. What I want to do real quick before I forget is, this is her website right here. And technology, it's not working like it should. Hold it for a second. Give me a second. Oh, here it is. Okay. So that's her website right there. Remember, she's in District 2, so this is the area right here. And like I told you with every show, and I'm promoting pretty much the same organization. They don't share my views or anything like that, but it's just my way of giving back. We have Youth Empower Me Foundation, Inc. They're giving a fundraiser on Cinco de Mayo at the National Harbor Top Golf. And this is what you get for it. You get 3 hours of play, fajita festival, soda, tea, whatever. If you want to reserve a bay, you have to have at least 6 people that will sign an auction. And it all goes to really empowering youth and families by providing mentorship, conferences, seminars, resources, events, and social skills. So there's the QR code if you want to get your tickets. And they're $75 per person. If you go to Top Golf, you're going to pay $75 probably for 1 hour when you get the food and all the other stuff. So this is a great deal for a great cause. So if you have the opportunity to go, please do visit the website. Get your tickets. April 1st. That's when this is when the early bird ticket sales go away. So I hope to see you there. I will be there. But until then, peace and blessings. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Peace and blessings.
Blaze the path.